Good afternoon mga ka-HR. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Medyo dito po sa Cavite, sa Imus Cavite ay medyo maulan. How about po sa ating mga kasamahan dyan sa ibang parte ng Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, and Quezon? Ngayong hapon po na to talaga namang sisiguraduhin po namin na lahat po tayo ay may matututunan mula sa ating speaker. Na syempre yung speaker natin ngayon ay talagang magbibigay sa atin ng knowledge, lalo na po ngayong halos lahat po tayo ay naghahanap ng mga requirement yata ng DOLE ito eh. May mga looking for first aid, mga trainings, and syempre matutulungan tayo niyan. Pero bago yan, Ma'am Janet, pa-share naman po ng screen.
Okay, for a while, Ms. Nadine. Sorry, I can't seem to find for a while. Okay.
Yan. HRE Knowledge 2021 Ground Rooms. Siyempre po, kanina pa po tayo naka-open sa ating Zoom. At medyo na late lang po due to some internet connection difficulties. Siyempre, alam naman po natin, medyo pwede na tayo mag-learning sa matuto at maraming experience through online. Pero kahit naman po saan, may difficulty pa rin po ang ating internet. We would like to request everyone na video on, or kung hindi po talaga kaya because of the internet, pwede rin naman po naka-off. Basta po audio mute. Lahat po ng katanungan ay nais po namin sana na ilagay niyo po sa chat box or sa comment section sa live na naka-live stream today. Hinihiling po namin ang inyong full attention and cooperation para po syempre lahat po tayo mas maraming matutunan. Kasi kaming mga board of directors ng HR Calabarzon ay talaga namang maraming natututunan sa bawat experience natin, sa bawat speaker natin every week. Ang HRE knowledge po na ito ay free. Wala po siya bayad. Pero ang e-certificate po ay pinaprovide po natin up paying minimal fee of 50 pesos good for 4 consecutive months. Ibig sabihin po kung nagbayad po kayo today, ngayon ay July 17, next week po yung pangalawa, next week yung pangatlo, next week po yung pang-apat. Ang GCash number po natin ay 0927-140-1360. Yan. Next slide, ma'am. Okay. Ano nga bang HR Calabarzon? Ang HR Calabarzon ay group kung saan kami ay nagpo-provide ng virtual and face-to-face learning sa lahat ng HR practitioner and enthusiasts in Calabarzon. Pero wait, hindi lang po tayo pang Calabarzon lang. May mga kasamahan po tayo sa NCR, sa Luzon, South Luzon, North Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, at may mga kaibigan tayo sa Taiwan, Japan, and Hong Kong. HR Calabarzon would like to thank the following. Oh, by the way, we'd like to thank the e-certificate po. Paano nga ba makakuha ng e-certificate? Inawin lang po namin, hindi po kami makakapagbigay ng assurance na ang presentation po na ipinoprovide sa every webinar ay may din nating ma-share. Unless otherwise po, mapayagan tayo ng ating speaker, lalo na kung wala po itong tinatawag na copyright. Ang e-certificate po ay ipinapadala po namin sa lahat na nagbayad na participant mula po nung Sabado last week hanggang ngayong araw na to. Humingi po kami ng paumanhin kung medyo na-late o palaging tuwing Sabado dahil syempre po ang lahat po ng board of director ay may kanya-kanya rin pong trabaho. Hinihiling din po namin na sana po ay ensure nyo na accurate ang information, lalong-lalo na po ang pangalan, ang email address, reference number, at proof of payment. Ulitin po namin, ang 50 pesos po ay good for 4 consecutive webinars at ang 50 pesos po na ito ay para ma-sustain ang ating monthly subscription. Pero bago po yan, tawagin po natin ang ating main host. Hi, Ma'am Janet!
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon once again to another Saturday full of learning. And we are lucky to have one of the most admired master trainer in the field of HR, So mamaya ipapakilala namin sila sa inyo. But for now, Miss Neddy, who will be discussing about the occupational safety and health, something that is really relevant and needed in the HR industry across all companies or across all organizations that are operating in the middle of pandemic.
Yes, ma'am. Pero bago yan, ma'am, magpasalamat muna tayo sa ating mga sponsor.
Okay, so we would like to thank Caparal Appliances and Furnitures, owned by one of our board of director co-founder, Ms. Jorina Caparal, and Jorina's Home Depot. Currently, meron po silang mga branches in Cavite. They have branch located in Green Gate, Malagasang. And we would also like to thank Bricks Power, our the company, the organization where I belong. We offer HR, IT, administrative services, and consulting services to all companies who may need these services enlisted in our ads. We would also want to thank Sabon Factory, De Calidad na Presyong Pangmasa, complete cleaning chemicals for household needs. So thank you also to Grupo Vino Inc., suppliers of essentials, medical essentials highly needed during this time of pandemic. And of course, St. Peter Life Plan. If you need anything relative to this, we have Miss Neddy. You can contact our founder for insurance, St. Peter Insurance. We also have AMD Collections Fashion Boutique for your fashion needs. They are located in Talisay, Batangas. And of course, one of our board of director, soul sidekick life coach, Miss Jolene Pamatman. Okay, so that's all for our sponsors. This afternoon, Miss Neddy, we will be discussing our 33rd HR e-knowledge, OSH, surviving, coping, and moving on amidst pandemic by our very own speaker, Mr. Maximo June Del Ponso Jr. He is currently the president of Special Operations Assistance and Rescue, currently with Emergency Ambulance Rescue Services President, and Search and Rescue Training and Consulting. He is also HR Workstream Lead of the Malampaya Exploration and formerly Senior HR Director of Cytal Philippines. He is an active member also and a master trainer of CLDP, or an accreditation body for learning and development professionals in the Philippines. Without further ado, let us all welcome our today's speaker, the one and only Mr. June Del Ponso. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi guys, good afternoon. Medyo kinabahan naman ako sa introduction na yan. Tumaas ang pressure. Ano ba yun? Thank you. Oh yes, thank you so much guys for inviting me.
Yes, na syempre matagal na namin kayong mentor sa Philippine HR Group pa lang. Talagang excited ang HR collaborator na for the first time makakasama namin ang isa sa pinakamagaling at pinakamabait na mentor na Philippine HR Group. Di ba? Knowing na syempre sir, alam na busy-busy sa pagbibigay ng tulong sa ating mga kababayan. Knowing na ang dami niyo pong special project and may mga training po kayo, mga first aid na binibigay sa ating mga company na nangangailangan.
Thank you, Ned.
Ano po bang may expect ng mga participants this afternoon, sir?
Ayan, thank you so much, Ned. Before I give you guys a brief rundown of our topic for today, allow me to thank everyone from the Calabarzon HR Group for inviting me and having me here today. Janet, thank you so much for the introduction. Nakakatakot yung introduction. But hey, thank you so much. All right. Allow me to add on to the introduction about myself. I am an avid HR practitioner actually. 23 years in the HR profession. Siguro paminsan-minsan kung nagbabasa kayo ng PHRG, nakikita niyo mga comments ko doon. Minsan may masungit akong comments, minsan napakabait. Kaya lang minsan kasi depende rin sa question. No? Ayan. But I am one of the moderators ng PHRG and one of the mentors as well. And mentor is just a title. title. It only means that I'm a friend and you can talk to me anytime. That's what it means. No? Ayan. So I am also the president of Special Operations Assistance and Rescue. It started as a volunteer organization. Then we said we can do more than just do little stuff. So we decided to do more. So we established a company, bought ourselves several ambulances, started a training center to help the different organizations, LGUs, and even companies, no, in their efforts towards employee safety. Most recently, alam nyo naman, napakalaki ng push ng DOLE ngayon pagdating sa ating OSH compliance. And our training center actually provides those kind of trainings as well para matulungan yung mga HR leaders natin na nangangailangan ng tulong pagdating dyan sa compliance areas na yan. All right. So today I will be talking about occupational safety and health amidst pandemic. I will not be delving on the details or the nitty-gritty details of the law itself, but I will be focusing on its application, some of the best practices we've seen so far, and some of the things that we can do moving forward. Ika nga, kailangan nating mag-move on. Hindi naman pwedeng dito na lang tayo naka-stop. Dapat mag-move on na tayo, move on na eventually. No? This thing will pass soon, but that doesn't mean that we will stop where we are. It means that even if there's pandemic, we have to move on. All right, so I'll be talking about that. If you have any questions, please feel free to write it on sa ating chat room or raise your hand. I understand that we have 45 participants a day, expecting about 100, unless I'm mistaken. Ayan, so hopefully they can make it. Yon, Ma'am Janet, so far, that's what I have for you guys today.
Okay, so it sounds exciting knowing that amidst all of these advisories, we are caught up in the middle of all the requirements, the compliances, and all. So we expect to learn more about all of these things from Sir June. So Ms. Neddy, I think we have to give Sir June the right to share his screen for the presentation proper. You can already do that now, sir? You are already the host.
Yep, let me try it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes,
sir.
Yeah, there you go. Let me just set it up. Let me just fix the breakout rooms a bit. We're expecting about 100 nets, tama ba?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me just create the breakout rooms para mamaya takbo na lang tayo na takbo sa rooms.
Excited na ako sa breakout room ngayon, Ma'am Janet. Ano sa tingin mo kaya ang pag-uusapan o gagawin natin sa breakout room knowing na sabi nga ni Sir, hindi niya masyadong mag-into deep pero lahat ng application. Ano kayang gagawin natin na application for this?
Sir June, baka maturuan mo kami sa emergency response at work. Something like that. Mga
sure.
Kailangan ng HR.
Sure. One of the things that we do actually is in times of disasters. I actually have a small team kasi. We're a team of 45 who's actually all volunteers. So in times of disasters and calamities and even during pandemic, we are among those being called by OCD and the RMC to respond in case of mga emergency situation. So very busy kami ngayong panahon ng pandemic actually. So we're in effect frontliners as well. Ayan. Kaya hindi tayo pwede mag face-to-face, promise. I see COVID patients regularly.
So high risk, Sir June. Alam mo, Sir June, pre-pandemic, we've been like preparing our workforce, especially those that are in OSH, no? In OSH team, OSH 1 or OSH 2 officers. Pero iba pala kapag you are already faced with a situation. And I think it only speaks about preparation. It only speaks about the learning and how to apply those theories that you have been like being presented with. So I think it's really essential that from time to time, HR practitioners like our participants this afternoon would be able to hear something from the experts so they could, really apply the necessary when they are already confronted with a situation.
You're absolutely right, Janet. No, prior COVID, if you look at the records of DOLE, you will find a lot of companies that are not really, I would say, 100% compliant, no, because of certain reasons, no. But with the COVID coming into play last year, you will see that a lot of companies have tried to beef up their OSH practices. Kasi talaga namang tested tayo ngayong panahon ng COVID eh. Although I know some companies like manufacturing, construction, real estate, talagang regular ang test ng OSH dyan kasi high risk ang karamihan dyan, no. But with the pandemic affecting everyone, you can just imagine, no? I'm trying to imagine kung ano yung umiikot sa ulo ng HR natin. What am I going to do? So when the pandemic hit last year, I was actually part of a huge organization of about 24,000 employees across the Philippines. I have 14 sites. I'm the senior HR director of that company, and can you imagine the challenge that we had, considering the volume of employees that we have during that time? 24,000 all over the Philippines. Yan. We have 5 sites up in Baguio, 4 sites down in Tarlac, 4 sites here in Manila, 5 sites in NCR, a couple of sites in Palawan, and other locations. So when the pandemic hit, that was the first thing that that was a mandate given to us by the global and the local office, saying that we need to prepare for this. So bits and pieces, without violating confidentiality, I will be sharing with you some of the things that some of the steps that we have taken to prepare the 24,000 employees and the 14 sites across the Philippines. And I'd like to think that we're still blessed, and I'd like to think that the procedures and protocols we put in play are working, kasi the incidences that we had were not as high as we thought it will be. I guess wala namang company na hindi tinamaan, ano, because we have a lot of employees living all over the Philippines, and you don't know, hindi natin nakikita yung kalaban natin eh. That's the problem with COVID, no? You don't see it, you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know where it is. So you really have to take all possible precautions. So without further ado, my dear friends, I think we have about 46 now. So allow me to start my quick presentation. And like I said to you guys, the topic is surviving, coping amidst pandemic. Ayan. Okay. But let's do a little bit of recap. Kasi when we talk about surviving, I guess this is not new to all of you, no? You've heard about this before, both in TV, radio, WHO, DOH, and what have you, no? It's all over the place. How do you get infected? But for the benefit of those that are still wondering how, allow me to share with you a quick video coming from some of our Google friends. All right. Let me just fix it for you. Give me a sec. Yeah, hopefully it shows. Can you guys see my screen? Ayan, hindi ko game yan, promise. Ayan. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we could, Sir June, but the video isn't playing yet. Oh, na-mute si Sir June.
Sir,
Can you guys see my screen?
Still black, sir.
Ay, black. Bakit kaya? Okay. How? Okay. My screen sharing daw was paused. Bakit kaya? Resume share. Okay. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Mukhang
That's
ayaw niyang
PowerPoint.
mukhang ayaw niya i-transfer yung video. So let me try it another way. Let me go to the video itself. Okay. And show it. Can you guys see it? Ayan, can you guys see it?
Transitioning.
Ayan. Oh, it's going back. Bumabalik siya. Bakit kaya? Teka, let me try sharing it again. Mukhang ayaw niya mag-work. Alright, let's try it this time. Ayan, can you guys see my screen? Is that
Yes, sir.
better?
Yes, sir.
Thank God. All right, let me play it for you. This is how we get infected.
This is SARS-CoV-2. It belongs to the family of coronaviruses named for the crown-like spikes on their surfaces. SARS-CoV-2 can cause COVID-19, a contagious viral infection that attacks primarily your throat and lungs. What actually happens in your body when you contract the coronavirus? What exactly causes your body to develop pneumonia? And how would a vaccine work? The coronavirus must infect living cells in order to reproduce. Let's have a closer look. Inside the virus, genetic material contains the information to make more copies of itself. A protein shell provides a hard protective enclosure for the genetic material as the virus travels between the people it infects. An outer envelope allows the virus to infect cells by merging with the cell's outer membrane. Projecting from the envelope are spikes of protein molecules. Both a typical influenza virus and the new coronavirus use their spikes like a key to get inside a cell in your body, where it takes over the cell's internal machinery, repurposing it to build the components of new viruses. When an infected person talks, coughs, or sneezes, droplets carrying the virus may land in your mouth or nose and then move into your lungs. Once inside your body, the virus comes in contact with cells in your throat, nose, or lungs. One spike on the virus inserts into a receptor molecule on your healthy cell membrane like a key in a lock. This action allows the virus to get inside your cell. A typical flu virus would travel inside a sac made from your cell membrane to your cell's nucleus that houses all its genetic material. The coronavirus, on the other hand, doesn't need to enter the host cell nucleus. It can directly access parts of the host cell called ribosomes. Ribosomes use genetic information from the virus to make viral proteins, such as the spikes on the virus's surface. A packaging structure in your cell then carries the spikes in vesicles which merge with your cell's outer layer, the cell membrane. All the parts needed to create a new virus gather just beneath your cell's membrane. Then, a new virus begins to bud off from the cell's membrane. Now, with the virus spreading in your body, how can you develop pneumonia symptoms? For this, we'll have to look into your lungs. Each lung has separate sections called lobes. Normally, as you breathe, air moves freely through your trachea or windpipe, then through large tubes called bronchi, through smaller tubes called bronchioles, and finally into tiny sacs called alveoli. Your airways and alveoli are flexible and springy. When you breathe in, each air sac inflates like a small balloon. And when you exhale, the sacs deflate. Small blood vessels called capillaries surround your alveoli. Oxygen from the air you breathe passes into your capillaries, and then carbon dioxide from your body passes out of your capillaries into your alveoli so that your lungs can get rid of it when you exhale. Your airways catch most germs in the mucus that lines your trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. In a healthy body, hair-like cilia lining the tubes constantly push the mucus and germs out of your airways, where you might expel them by coughing. Normally, cells of your immune system attack viruses and germs that make it past your mucus and cilia and enter your alveoli. However, if your immune system is weakened, like in the case of a coronavirus infection, the virus can overwhelm your immune cells, and your bronchioles and alveoli become inflamed as your immune system attacks the multiplying viruses. The inflammation can cause your alveoli to fill with fluid, making it difficult for your body to get the oxygen it needs. You could develop lobar pneumonia, where one lobe of your lungs is affected, or you could have bronchopneumonia that affects many areas of both lungs. Pneumonia may cause difficulty breathing, chest pain, coughing, fever and chills, confusion, headache, muscle pain, and fatigue. It can also lead to more serious complications. Respiratory failure occurs when your breathing becomes so difficult that you need a machine called a ventilator to help you breathe. These are the machines that save lives and that medical device companies currently ramp up production for. Whether you would develop these symptoms depends on a lot of factors, such as your age and whether you already have an existing condition. While this all sounds scary, the push to develop a coronavirus vaccine is moving at high speed. Studies of other coronaviruses led most researchers to assume that people who have recovered from a SARS-CoV-2 infection could be protected from reinfection for a period of time. But that assumption needs to be backed by empirical evidence, and some studies suggest otherwise. There are several different approaches for a potential vaccine against the coronavirus. The basic idea is that you would get a shot that contains faint versions of the virus. The vaccine would expose your body to a version of the virus that is too weak to cause infection, but just strong enough to stimulate an immune response. Within a few weeks, cells in your immune system would make markers called antibodies, which would be specific for only the coronavirus, or specifically its spike protein. Antibodies then attach to the virus and prevent it from attaching to your cells. Your immune system then responds to signals from the antibodies by consuming and destroying the clumps of viruses. If you then catch the real virus at a later stage, your body would recognize it and destroy it. In other words, your immune system is now primed. Collecting evidence on whether this will be possible, safe, and effective is part of what's taking researchers so long to develop a vaccine. It's a race against time to develop a vaccine amid a pandemic. Each step in vaccine development usually takes months, if not years. An Ebola vaccine broke records by being ready in 5 years. The hope here is to develop one for the new coronavirus in a record-breaking 12 to 18 months. While all of this will take time, stay home if you can, to protect the most vulnerable. And don't forget to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds and as often as possible.
Ayan. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Okay. Ayan. Ayan. So that's how we get infected by the virus. I remember in one of my sessions, somebody asked me the question, Sir June, if the virus is really that potent, how can washing the hands really protect us from infection? If you remember yung explanation sa atin kanina, the SARS-CoV virus actually has spikes, right? And the soap that we use actually affects the spikes' ability to hang on to our cells because of the chemical contents of the soap. So the tendency for it to stick is much, much lesser as compared to not soaping your hands. I guess that answers some of the questions. Now we know how we get infected. Let's ask ourselves the question now, how are we coping up with it? How are we surviving so far? We have done all of this. We have done social distancing. We have done washing our hands thoroughly. We avoid shaking our hands. That's why usong-uso ang fist bump ngayon, di ba? Yun ang ating mode of hi, hello, fist bump, no? We have also tried other things like sneezing using a piece of paper or tissue paper, or using our hands instead so that it won't spread, ika nga, no? We tried staying at home, and we have seen that happen over the last 18 months or 19 months by now. All right, so we have done all of this. Okay. However, if you ask yourself the question, what else have we not done? What else can we do to help our employees, our friends, our family members get over this pandemic? Right? The Department of Labor has been very specific on this. The DTI has been very specific on this. IIT have issued a lot of rules around this. Sure, you know, let's go ahead and follow it. Some might choose not to if they prefer, but it is a decision that they have to make. You know, but the rules are already established. Practices are already established in there. Okay, so let's look at some data that we have around the situation. Applying it to OSH, allow me to share with you some numbers. Now, these numbers may not even be as updated as I wanted it to, no? In so much as I want to get the most recent information, I just can't find the most recent one. However, looking at our workplace today, let me share with you some numbers that pretty much speaks about the value or the importance of occupational safety and health. According to to a study or data coming from ILO, they're basically saying that around 6,000 people die every day due to work-related accidents. Okay. Now, this is a global number, not just Philippines number, right? Let's look at the Philippines in this case. Okay. This number is coming from ECC, basically. Medyo late na yung number, but it gives you an idea as to what the situation is. What ECC is saying is 347,310 work-related sicknesses, injury, death claims since 2000 to 2010. I didn't realize ganun siya karami. Did you guys know na ganun karami ang mga claims due to work-related illnesses and accidents? Average of 1,441 and 99 cases per year, or 386 cases per day. Okay. But this is 2010. I don't have the most recent one. I was looking for it kanina. I can't find the most recent one. But if you look at the numbers here, I guess these numbers are staggering. Can you really believe that there are 386 work-related accidents daily all over the Philippines? Nakakagulat, no? Although 386 is a small number, can you imagine the impact of these accidents or deaths in the lives of our employees? Can you imagine the impact of that? Okay, let's look at some more numbers here. Okay. Wait, can you guys see my screen well? Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the industries naman that has the highest number of fatalities, no? If you look at the pie chart provided here to us by the same institution, DOLE, what they're saying is that 35% of the total number of fatal cases actually came from real estate. Real estate means construction and other related or connected industries. No? Another big contributor there is transport, storage, and communication, as well as mining. This one naman is manufacturing. If you look at our COVID-19 data as of July 16, the numbers are quite positive. I'd like to think that things are getting better. Looking at the positive side of things, no. According to this report, there are almost 48,500 active cases, and a lot have already gone better. While we still have 26,500 who lost their lives to COVID. Okay. I'm presenting this data to you, my dear friends, because this stresses the real importance of OSH in our workplace. I will not mention the name of the company, but when we were reviewing the data in preparation for courses of action, we saw that there were some companies that had to close down because of the COVID situation, and a lot of employees have lost their work there. In this particular company I'm sharing with you, another company ito, hindi yung company ko, overnight they had about 140 cases in that particular building. Again, 140 cases in one building. That prompted IATF to close down the whole building. Right? It's quite staggering in terms of impact. All right, so let's move forward. Let's look at our workplace and figure out what are those hazards that we find in some workplaces. No, it's important for us to first understand the problem in order for us to come up with a solution. Yes, the law exists, but the law is the law. In practice, we go back to our workplace. Are we applying what the law is saying? Are we assessing our workplaces, our work sites? What are those workplace hazards that we can find there? Everything begins with that assessment. An example would be to look at some of those workplace hazards like chemical hazards. What are those chemical materials that are present in our organization, in our factory floor, in our work areas, in our workstations? Okay, chemical hazards can be in different forms. It can be gas forms, liquid forms, aerosol forms, right? There are chemicals that are corrosive. There are chemicals that are quite toxic. Some causes allergies, right? Some causes irritations. So we need to figure out in my workplace, if you look around your workstation today, go ahead and look around where you're seated. Can you find some chemical hazards near you or within your area? I can definitely find one. I see a bygone aerosol right across my where I'm sitting. So it's just right over there. So I will ask later on, why is it that there is a poisonous aerosol in the office? It's not in the storage cabinets for these types, right? So look around you. In your homes, you can find some of these already. In the workplace, more so. So look at those. Also, look at some physical hazards. Okay? Some physical hazards like noise. Is the temperature too high or too low? Is there pollution in the area? Are there emissions coming from the machines and going into the workplace instead of it going to where it should go, like air filters and all and the like? No. What about vibrations in your workplace? Biological hazards. Naku, since we're talking about COVID, my question to you, my dear friends, is up to what extent have you taken or what steps have you taken to protect your workplace or at least minimize the possibility of infection in your workplace? What have you done so far? Now, even without COVID, there are some infectious things, the hazards that we can look at. For example, even without COVID, there are certain types of virus that certain employees carry with them, and then when they sneeze, it circulates through our ventilation system, and it infects others. Okay. Are there enough filters in there? Is the preventive maintenance being undertaken regularly? What chemical disinfectants do we use around our workplace to get rid of the biological hazards or minimize, if at all? No? What are the other hazards? What about ergonomic hazards? When we talk about ergonomic hazards, we're looking at how the office or how the workstation is set up. Okay, how the dangerous equipments, high risk equipments, how are they protected? How is the employees protected against those equipments? Are there shields in place, to protect the employee, among others? Also, the most not really recent, but recently being given a lot of attention are psychological hazards in our workplace. No? Kaya nga yung ating mental health is something that's really being given a lot of attention nowadays. Not just because of the work, but because of the impact of the pandemic to the work, to the lives of our employees. No, it's definitely it impacts. If the family is impacted, if they're impacted, the work that they do is definitely impacted. So the psychosocial hazards must also be looked at. Okay. Once you're able to figure out what those hazards are, then you can start thinking of what control measures can we put in play in order to prevent, if not minimize, the proliferation of these hazards that could cause accidents, injuries or deaths eventually. Engineering controls are some of those controls that we can put in play. We can put protective barriers related to COVID. No, we can put in protective barriers. We can put in distancing among seats. We can put in plastic covers. We can put in several. But when you touch your telephone, there are protective covers that can be put in there. So a lot of these engineering controls can be put in play to protect our employees. Administrative control, of course, are rules. Um, in so much as I'd like to say that all employees are compliant, the fact of the matter is it's not true. Some employees have the tendency to disregard some of the rules that are in place or the safety rules that are in place. No, I remember I was working in a manufacturing company when I was younger. We manufacture air conditioning units, and we have one of those metal presses na talaga namang when you see it is so huge, nakakatakot talaga siya, and it can really form the housing of that air conditioning unit with one press, and all of the control measures are there. There are protective barriers, there are shields in there, even the switch itself is shielded. However, we did encounter several accidents because of some human error, some negligence on the part of some of our employees. That's why administrative control is important. Rules will have to be in place. Even if you have safety procedures, engineering controls in there, rules must be put in place and enforced. Of course, PPE is one of those that are really very helpful for all of us, especially this type of pandemic. No, I mean, the simple things like face masks that we provide our employees, face shields, no, gloves, and all of those soaps in the bathrooms, no, all of those alcohol pump stations. These are personal protective equipments, or what we call universal precaution that we put in play to protect our employees. No? Ayan, personal protective equipment. More so pagdating sa construction, sa real estate, sa manufacturing, no? Mas marami tayong mga PPEs that are in play there. Supposed to be. That's why pag nag-audit si Dole, tinitingnan nila yan. Minsan, nahuhulihan tayo na wala tayong PPE in some workstation. Kaya tayo ay nadiding, as they call it, no? Or eventually nape-penalize pag hindi natin kinorek. Ayan. Okay. Teka, let me just hide this at ayaw niyang mawala. Ayan. Okay. Let's now look at some office or workplace safety practices. Okay. For some of you, this is really basic. While for the others, talagang review na lang ito. So allow me this latitude for the benefit of some of our friends that are new to some of the OSH practices that we have. And if you would be so kind, please share some of your best practices in your workplace as well later on. No? And let's look at some safety basics. Everything believes in, I've always believed that safety is in the mind. It's a mindset. No, I am an avid prepper. I don't know if you're familiar with the word prepper, but for those that are familiar with the word prepper, these are individuals or group of people that that actually think about potential situations in the future, and they put together preparations, no, just in case it happens. Medyo ano yan, some people might think praning sila, but it does make sense, no? We never thought that after the eruption of Taal, COVID will happen. So prior to the eruption of Taal, I've been gathering a lot of N95 masks. As a matter of fact, kasi earlier, nagkakaroon na ng emissions ng Taal and all that, even mayon. So I've been building my my stockpile of N95 masks, and I think I have about 4 boxes of N95 masks, and each box would have about 100 masks in it. So I have about 400 N95 masks. And then without knowing, Taal erupted. I was able to use some of it. And without knowing again, COVID happened. So I have a lot of N95 masks when one piece of N95 was about 150 pesos, if you still remember that. So I guess prepping does help a little bit in times of situations like that. So it's all in the mind. If we believe that everything is hunky-dory, everything is perfect and nice, then I guess we are living in a bubble. The fact of the matter is, these are some examples of those types of thinking. Accidents and road deaths are unavoidable. Though I agree, that's why we call it accident, no? At some point, kaya nga accident ang tawag sa kanya. But I also believe that accidents can be avoided. as much as possible. That's why we have, for example, road accidents. That's why we are being taught to be defensive. That's why we're being taught to do mga maneuvers that are like this and like that, being respectful on the road, being cautious of our vehicles, making sure that it is roadworthy, among others, to prevent road accidents, and being alert all the time. Kaya nga tayo tinuturuan yan. No? Although I agree, some accidents are unavoidable, but you can do something about it so it does not happen. Ika nga. Some another thinking is we very rarely make mistakes. I don't think that's even true. We make a lot of mistakes. That's a fact, and that's how we learn from those mistakes, right? When we make a mistake, the idea is to learn from it and not do it again, and ika nga, exert effort to correct that mistake. But the fact of the matter is we do make a lot of mistakes, whether we admit it or not. We exceed company expectations, just because things are doing okay. It doesn't mean that there are areas that we do not need to look into, right? So pag nagkaroon ng management audit, we feel that, yeah, we have done a lot, we're doing very well. Pero pag nag-audit ang management or ang DOLE for that matter, nagagalit tayo kasi bakit ganito, bakit ganyan, ba't niya nakita yan, ba't niya nakita ito? That means we're not as prepared as we wanted it to. Okay, and some companies or even individuals believe that we never break the law. Well, admittedly, we try not to. I mean, that's the idea. We are all law-abiding citizens. We avoid breaking the law. Sometimes, inadvertently, we do. Like, for example, because of our negligence in putting in some safety precautions in the canteen or in the clinic or in the pantry, for example, somebody slipped and hit her head on the floor because there are no signages that says wet floor and there's nobody maintaining the floor. We didn't want it to happen, but inadvertently it happened because of some negligence. Okay, so let's revisit these kinds of beliefs and look at what's really happening. Okay, accidents can be avoided. We make mistakes, that's a fact. Our work performance can be better, can be improved. We don't follow the road laws always. We sometimes break the law. Okay. What do we have to do? Simple things, no? Change of mindset. Change of mindset. I mean, sabi nga ni Stephen Covey, paradigm is how you see things, right? And when you have a change in paradigm, then you see things differently. Okay. One of the mindset suggestion that we're saying is that accept that there are better ways of doing things. Yes, we are doing good here. That's okay. I mean, the enemy of great is good. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, Good to Great. I'm sure you are if you're in the manufacturing. One of those best reads pagdating sa manufacturing, and I guess applicable everywhere. But I started reading that book when I was young and when I was in the manufacturing, Good to Great. And one of the learnings that I have there is that good is the enemy of great. Kasi if you're already good, you have the tendency to be complacent. Yan. Kasi good na tayo eh. But we can still be great according to that book. Okay. Accepting that individuals can make a difference. Yes, we can make a lot of difference, no? Kahit nag-iisa lang tayo. In all of the things that we do, we can make a lot of difference. COVID, for example, I did mention to you guys earlier that we are in a way frontliners. We probably are not making that much of a difference by working together with a lot of LGUs, by teaching them how to wash their hands properly, by teaching them how to disinfect their homes, by teaching them how to avoid touching their faces, by sanitizing this and that. It's probably not as big as what other companies are doing, but we believe that it's making a difference, one person at a time. In your workplace, every safety effort makes a difference. When you start putting in efforts like, for example, trash segregation, some people think that trash segregation is nakakapagod, masyadong maraming trabaho and all that, masyadong maarte and all that. But the fact of the matter is, when we do trash segregation, we are actually supporting the environment. We are making a big difference there, right? We have to accept that every individual in the organization is important. From the janitors, to the guards, to the rank and file, to the managers, to the executives, to eventually to the board and the president, every member of the organization is important. If you have set up your emergency response teams in your respective companies, you will realize that the janitor, the guard are very critical parts or a very important part of your emergency response team and emergency response plan, because they are the ones who are out there and can see a lot of things better than you are sitting in your table. The guards can actually see a lot of things like, okay, there's fire here. I can easily identify it. A guard has been trained how to do firefighting, basic firefighting and all that. So before it even gets to you, your ERT have acted on it already. Okay, so accepting the individuals can make a contribution in that situation. All right, so let's make use of all of this in our safety efforts. Okay, sabi nga, if you think being audited by Dole and being penalized is expensive, try an accident. I mean, can you imagine how much we're paying on a regular basis on accident insurance alone, premiums alone? If you don't have one, can you imagine the impact or the cost of that accident? Let's say, for example, in your workplace, may naputulan ng kamay dyan na worker, and wala kayong accident insurance, and you're not religiously paying statutory requirements. Can you imagine the impact of that to the employee? And can you imagine the cost of that to the company? So if the labor standards are costly, try an accident, which I totally agree. Okay. Can you see your office in this picture? I hope not. I mean, I'm sure you can identify a lot of hazards in here, no, in this picture. If you can see your office in this picture, then I guess it's high time for you to start looking around and identifying what those hazards are in your workplace and coming up with either one of the four that I mentioned to you about earlier about engineering and all that, or those that apply to you, depending on your need. Okay. Do we have a question in the chat?
I think we're gonna pull all the questions together for later, Sir June.
Okay, sureness. Okay, let's move forward. Again, for the benefit of the newer ones, for the others, it's more of a review. Let's look at workplace safety. I hope my PowerPoint works. Okay. There are certain considerations when we talk about safety. And one of the things that we always talk about is our legal obligation. Kasi Dole audits us eh. Other third-party institutions audit us eh. If you're ISO certified, then the ISO company audits us. So we have to put in safety procedures. We have to be compliant with OSH because it's a legal obligation. Yeah, it is, right? It is a legal obligation. We don't want to be penalized. We don't want to be in trouble. Yeah, sure. But that is just one aspect of it. Remember, legal obligation in itself is just one. What about your people obligation, right? I mean, your social obligation. So let's talk about it one by one. Having a good having a good OSH practice in your organization definitely will help provide you a safety net pagdating sa inyong legal obligation. That is good. That's one strategy. Like I said to you kanina, what about your social obligation to your employees? Diba? Kasi empleyado mo yung na-aksidente sa workplace eh. Diba? So having a good OSH practice in your organization actually gives you a greater strategy. Kasi your employees will love you for it. Kasi you know that you care for them. They'll know that you look after their welfare. They know that you're putting in all of these OSH practices for them, for their protection, for their safety, for their lives. At the end of the day, as HR practitioners, my dear friends, although we are not the only owner of OSH in the organization, it has to be an organization-wide ownership, right? As a matter of fact, in some companies, the head of the OSH committee is no less than the president, right? In some companies that I have seen, right? Because the bigger picture is really our employees make our business work. They are the backbone of our business. Without our employees, it will be very difficult for us to function. Although some companies are quite technical already, quite mechanical already, you still need people to push certain buttons and do their role in the organization. There's a better strategy is really looking after the welfare of our employees through our OSH practices to save lives, to protect them. Okay. So in this particular slide, we're saying that relationship between management, labor, or employees, by putting in our good OSH practices, pagdating sa public naman, if you have zero accident and if you are seen by government institution like the Department of Labor as a company that's compliant and is doing its best to protect its employees through the OSH programs, among others, then that is good reputation for your company. Sino ba naman na gusto mag-work sa isang company na mataas ang accident rate, di ba? Nakakatakot naman yata yun. Pupunta ka sa isang company tapos ang accident rate nila in a month of the total number of employees nila na 300, about 10 or 20 have met an accident. Medyo nakakatakot naman yata siya. So having that good OSH practice provides public affirmation and recognition for your company, and at the same time future employees will see that this company is very good at protecting its employees. Thereby, at the bottom of all of it, mas maganda ang bottom line mo. Kasi zero accident ka, ang attrition mo ay mababa, walang masyadong resignations because they're happy working there. Then at the bottom of it all is good profitability. Yeah. If things are done right the first time and every time, we have a safe operation, but also an efficient, productive, cost-effective operation, according to Deming, which is the father of TQM. I hope I was able to give you guys a good overview of practices in OSH that makes sense, no? I mean, if you really look at occupational safety and health, it's really just good common sense. No? You realize that there are hazards in your workstation. You put together action steps to reduce or remove those hazards and maintain those in order to sustain. Very practical. Okay, but don't get me wrong. There are rules, of course. Okay, so what have we done so far from an OSH standpoint? And in supporting our employees, the number one priority, one of the best practices I've seen, the number one priority of the company is really compassion and empathy for its employees. That's their number one priority. Allow me to share with you some of the things that they have done. Baka nagawa na rin ng karamihan sa inyo ito, no? So, good job, my dear friends. For those who haven't, maybe it's something for you to think about, okay? Here are some of those best practices I've seen in relation to COVID na tayo, okay? Some of those companies I've seen have provided opportunities for their employees not only to prevent it, but also when they are in the situation talaga that they are showing symptoms and they're experiencing COVID-19 already, then they have provided 24/7 clinic coverage, teleconsult, HMO, among others. That could help defray the cost of their hospitalization, at least cover certain amount of those costs, no? To help those employees get through the problem. Okay, constant and frequent communication appeared to be one of the best approaches. No, kasi syempre, can you imagine yourself being in a COVID ward at PGH, only with a cell phone in your hand, and you cannot reach anyone or you cannot ask help from anyone, and your company is not even responding to your emails, your chats, your FB messages and Skype and all that. Can you imagine how it feels like? So constant, frequent communication via possible media has been created by a lot of these companies and has worked for them pretty well. Okay? They have provided the usual, ika nga, well, usual na kasi 2 years na tayo under pandemic. So it has became a usual thing already. No, a lot of companies have provided this for their employees. They have also provided very strict re-entry protocols. Some companies kasi have already started working on site. Although working from home is still preferred and it's still ika nga being encouraged at this point in time. Some companies simply can't do it 100%. So some have started bringing in people into their workplaces, but they have established very strict reentry protocol and steps to take just in case an employee have symptoms and all that. So they put some triage processes in place. Okay. They have also provided tools like thermal scanners, among others. And if there are employees that are showing symptoms, the employees are being redirected to the clinic or to their staging area or holding area where the doctors will examine them. And if the need for them to go to a hospital or go home and rest or do their quarantine time, then the doctor will provide that advice. Okay. I saw this the last time I went to one huge organization in Ortigas, and I said, sa every 30-minute sanitation of restroom, sige nga, orasan ko nga ito. So, okay. Lo and behold, less than 30 minutes, meron ng janitress na umiikot with a sanitary sprayer and nakasuot siya ng PPEs and all. Umiikot siya sa banyo. Aside from the other janitors cleaning, this lady is going around with a sprayer sanitizing the walls, the doorknobs, and all the parts of the restrooms and other common areas. Okay, 30 minutes, less than 30. Okay, sige, I'll wait some more. Lo and behold, even before 30 minutes, ayan na naman siya. Okay, then in that case, okay, so it's a practice pala, hindi lang siya for show. And then meron siyang piece of paper doon na chine-checkan niya every time dadaan siya. And there's a supervisor that goes around. Oh, okay, nagawa. Oh, bakit hindi ka umikot nito? Oh, bakit, there are procedures in place. Okay. Well, you all know this. The health check has been given. I've seen some companies who provided isolation areas then for those employees. And I was like thinking, yung isolation areas ba nila ay mukhang tent lang? So I went into one of these companies and meron siyang isolation area. And nung nakita ko yung isolation area, hindi siya tent lang. When you're in the isolation area, napaka-comfortable. As a matter of fact, may sofa doon, may mga drinks doon, may fruits doon, something, to pika-pika while waiting. It's not as okay. Sabi ko, I thought isolation tents are like, just tents. But in this case, it is an isolation area, but there are some features that was given for the employees to enjoy. What else have other companies have done? Well, work from home has always been there was a time when I was working for that big company, 24,000 employees. We never had work from home. And then when the pandemic hit, within a matter of a few months, 70% of our population were working from home. It was a bit of a challenge kasi logistically, we had to send PCs to their homes. We have to provide them with internet connectivity, among others. It was a challenge. But during the first 6 months, talagang challenging siya. But eventually, as our telco companies started beefing up their systems as well, slowly, they were able to cope up. And right now, the 70% is still working from home. The 30% that has to come to the office are actually coming to work at least twice a week lang. Yan. So we minimize as much as possible. Ano ba yung hotak at pudo? Actually, transportation yan. Hotak or hotel to a drop-off point yan to kung saan sila pwedeng sunduin. Kasi there was a time during the pandemic, during the ECQ, talagang hindi ka pwede makakapasok sa a certain location. So there are drop-off areas where they have to be picked up by someone else when they're dropped off. But they have also provided hotels, and Pudo is actually transportation and hotel as well for those employees that are living in far areas. I think until today, meron pa rin mga employees that are in the hotels, particularly those that are living in the areas like Rizal, Bulacan, and farther areas. Okay. Well, the rest are pretty straightforward, guys. You've seen this before in other companies that you've seen. Questions so far before I jump into how COVID changed our lives?
I'm getting like two major concerns that are actually related, Sir June. Number one question here is, to whose accountability daw po if an accident happened in the workplace? Is it the OSH team of an organization or the company as a whole?
And to be honest with you, my dear friends, I did mention to you that employee safety is not a department concern. It is an organization-wide concern, right? Sorry. Ay, okay, tuloy. Sorry.
Okay,
So
all right. So
if, for example, the accident, although the Health and Safety Committee or the OSH committee is, of course, the frontliner, right? Um, the management cannot simply say, OSH committee, you made a mistake. You cannot blame the OSH committee for that accident. It only means that the approach has to be organizational. Ibig sabihin, prior to even an accident happening, dapat the organization have prepared for it already. The role of the OSH or the emergency response team or the safety committee is really to assess the risk, come up with recommendations to mitigate the risks, and eventually come up with action plans. But despite of that, meron pa ring accident. Then it is an organization concern. It cannot be blamed sa kamay ni OSH itself because the organization, the management is part of the safety planning from
I
the
would
start.
agree. Yeah, I would agree to that, Sir Juno. And in fact, to most of the HR practitioners, we are starting to encourage already, or we're starting to like implement a program wherein we put the responsibility of health and safety on the hands of everyone. So your safety, your health, your responsibility. Siguro
Correct.
OSH team could be just like, how do I say, like facilitators of these programs. And the most important thing for the organization is to at least communicate those programs to employees. If something happens, who do you call? If an accident like this happens in this department, saan kayo unang tatakbo? I think yun yung pinaka-important role ng OSH team.
So your OSH team is like your conductors. Okay, these are the things that
Right.
we need to do. Kapag may ganitong aksidente, may sunog, itong gagawin natin. Meron kang mga marshals, no, sa mga floors. Ang trabaho ng marshals is to direct the people to the fire exits, what to do if in case there's a fire, there's an earthquake. Tama kayo eh. I mean, OSH, the safety committee is a great help. But tama, at the end of the day, safety is everyone's concern.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so for young HR practitioners, we have to start, proliferating or sharing this idea, encouraging everybody to be responsible of themselves. Surgeon, may isang question. Although I think there are like labor or DOLE advisories that had responded on these questions for, I think less than 5 years pa lang ito na na-implement if I'm not mistaken. Ang tanong niya dito, to whose responsibility daw po ba or kanino ikakarga yung cost ng PPE?
Related to COVID or production PPE?
I think it's a generic question, but since we're into pandemic, we would want to refer to the PPEs for COVID.
That is a good question. Now, there has been a lot of guidelines there, ika nga, no, that has been set out. I think I don't know if I have it here readily available sa aking database, but the usual PPE at the workplace, yung mga safety gear natin, that if your question is, should it be charged to management or should it be at the employee's expense?
To the
That's the
employees,
question,
yeah.
right? Okay. So the usual production, the operations, PPEs, syempre, company yan, di ba? Company ang nagpo-provide niyan kasi kasama sa safety requirement ng company yan eh. Kaya, halimbawa, may mga machines kayong ino-operate, dapat nagpo-provide ng company ng PPE. Ano yan? Operational, ha? Now, the question of whether the company will provide face shields, face mask, there is really no specific instruction that the company should provide. There's no specific guideline saying, oh, company, you provide face mask. However, a company that looks after the welfare of its employees will do its very best to provide up to a certain extent na kaya niya these types of things like PPEs and all that. Let me give you an example. In the case of the 24,000 employees that we used to that I used to manage, it is a challenge not only to produce the face masks. Kasi nung time na yun, can you imagine 24,000 face masks every day? That is a bit of a challenge. However, the company said, all right, uh, there's also a lot of shortage of face mask in the market, right? Let's do our employees a favor by working with a Singapore or an external provider. In this case, we talked to a provider in Singapore. Can you do this for us? So we did. We were able to import a large amount of face masks, and we were able to issue out to our employees certain number of face masks. And then once that's consumed, the employee knows that the rest is his responsibility already. Yeah, I hope I was
Okay.
able to answer the question.
Thank you, Sir June. That's I think also a good opportunity for HR practitioners to look at. No? We start looking at, sabi nga ni Sir June kanina, being compassionate to your employees, because when your employee feels that they are safe returning to site, it would be easier to communicate to them na, oh, tomorrow babalik na tayo sa site. Ha? And I think, Sir June, mas maganda, i-connect ko rin yung question na to relative to feeling of the employee or the feeling that they are safe returning on site. Because with the changes in community quarantine status and with a little bit adjustment on the restrictions, I think some of the companies are starting to slowly return to the pre-COVID, kung hindi man normal, the new normal operation setup by allowing bigger number or bigger percentage of the population to really go back to reporting on site. But then there would be employees that feels like, I think most of them, would even ask, why is there a need for us to go back to on-site operation when we are actually perfectly functioning while we are working from home? So at the end of the day, whether it's like a management decision, employee would still feel like meron pa rin silang, how do I say ba, Sir June? Ang tanong niya kasi dito, what do you say about those employees who doesn't feel like being open, returning to on-site work because they feel they're still high risk, especially with the previous variants are not yet resolved or not yet like being given appropriate medical attention, and yet Delta variant is coming into picture. No? So employees don't feel safe. What do we do with those people who are not really open to going back on site?
That is a very difficult question to answer because it's quite sensitive, no? Speaking of the Delta variant, siguro one of these days magiging X-Men na tayo, no? Kasi may X variant na, no? I mean, I'll have my claws. Just kidding. I mean, how many variants are there? Just kidding. All right, just kidding. All right, but to answer your question, let's face the facts. No, let's face the facts here. Some companies can survive while working from home. And there are industries that are simply survivable when you're working from home, diba? There are, however, certain industries that cannot survive working from home because there are, let's take the example of manufacturing. Let's say these are critical products that, ano tawag natin doon? These are essential products to the living. Like for example, production of food, for example, or raw materials that are ika nga part of production of day-to-day living requirements natin, no? And it requires manpower, simply because our production systems are not as ika nga as mechanical and computerized as other countries might be. So there is a requirement for manpower. Now, the question is, should I come to work? I mean, I don't feel like going to work. But if your role is part of that essential production or essential activity that will help support the survivability of your nation or your fellow Filipinos, I guess the question is, it's no longer a question as to whether I can come back to work or not. It now becomes a question of what can the company do to protect me while going to work or coming back home. Diba? Kasi at some
Yeah.
point, yung role mo kasi is critical eh. Otherwise, if you guys remember, during the early days of COVID, during the first few quarters natin, we are all panicking to get food from the supermarket, diba? There was panic buying, there were even lootings in some areas because there's simply no production. Diba? Anarchy will rule if, for example, this is not addressed. Now, I do understand. It's kind of scary. Kasi syempre, baka yung katabi ko sa jeep, meron yan, malay ko ba? Diba? Hindi naman natin alam. And it's really, really scary. So the question now is, what will the company do to at least minimize my risk or protect me while commuting back to work or going back home? I guess that's the better question. Kasi going back to work, like I said, for some companies that are really essential, is unavoidable. Otherwise, there is a huge, significant impact to the society. I remember a lot of men's friends working with Pure Foods. They were like saying, kailangan na bumalik kasi essential yung mga pinoproduce namin na food eh. Like canned goods, for example. I mean, that has to be produced kasi otherwise, we will run out of supply and people will go hungry and all that stuff. And there will be panic on the streets. And sabi ko, so what is the company doing for you? We actually have shuttle services that are being sanitized on a regular basis. We are provided this, and that to help protect us on our way home or on our way to the work. When we're at the workplace, there are actions and steps that they have taken to help protect us. There are sanitation procedures, among others. I don't think there's a single company in this country or any country for that matter na critical yung kanyang business but won't realize na kailangan niyang alagaan yung employee niya. Otherwise, di papasok yan. Patay ang negosyo mo. Hindi ba? Patay ngayon ang industriya mo. So, again, babalik ako dun sa question. What is the company willing to provide to support the employees to protect them at the very least? Ika nga, no? While they need to come to work.
Right, okay. Kasi on a technical perspective, Sir June, ang sinasabi naman po ng DOLE, as long as the company was able to implement the protocols, the health protocols, you are allowed as long as allowed na ang percentage ng industry, you will be okay to ask employee to go back to on-site work. However, this is a golden time siguro for HR practitioners like ourselves, participants, to start really pushing through the educational campaign and making employee realize that at this time, when every company is struggling to keep afloat, except na lang siguro sa as big as Surgeon's company with 24,000 employees, but most of the small SMEs are really struggling. And if you are into this type of business, you're into this kind of company category, all you have to do is to really help your company survive by being there and supporting the call of the management to go on site. Kasi as long as the management naman is able to provide the support that is needed, and I think that would be fine. Wala tayong magagawa but to go back to work. If you don't feel safe, even after all of this protocols have been implemented, then it's your call. But I think the company has the right to ask you to go back to work. So yeah,
I've also seen
should have to start educating.
I've also seen some companies, like I said, don't get me wrong, talaga naman nakakatakot eh. But
Right.
I've seen some companies na talagang, in my case kasi, BPO kasi ako. So kahit nasa bahay ang mga yan, makakapag-calls yan. So okay lang kami, kahit 24,000 kami. Kasi dinala namin lahat ng desktop tsaka laptop sa bahay eh, mga bahay nila. But you're right, in some companies or some industries na struggling, I guess I've seen some companies that are struggling. Ayaw talaga ng employee na bumalik. Then the company had to make a difficult decision. Some were actually put on temporary furlough or temporary layoff. After 6 months, if talagang hindi nagbago yung kanilang, let's say, negosyo, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang yung downturn or hindi pa rin nila napapaangat, then retrenchment will follow. I mean, you lose your job, although merong konting separation pay, but after that, what? 'Di ba? I mean, napakahirap humanap ng trabaho ngayon. I have to admit, I mean, I have a lot of friends looking for jobs, and not there. These are not just blue collar, I mean, white collar workers. A lot of these are blue collar workers. They're saying, ang hirap humanap ng trabaho, ang daming ina-applyan, hindi tumatanggap man, pailan-ilan lang. So, I'm not saying you take the risk. What I'm saying is, you have to weigh, timbangin mo. And if you feel that you can survive even if you don't go to work, or even if you leave that organization requiring you to come to work, then that is a call you have to make. If you feel that you cannot, wala tayong negosyo and all that, then a decision has to be made.
Okay, right. Okay. One last na lang, Sir June. Isingit ko na po yung question na to. Before how COVID changed our lives, our behaviors. Okay. So, because I think you mentioned earlier, no, that janitors, guards, those that are in your frontliners are very essential part of risk assessment and risk or emergency mitigation. So, and I think COVID had made most of the business owners and business leaders realize how this personnels really help us cope up the difficulty of operating amidst pandemic. So what do you think po are the essential programs that the company can, develop for these workers on their level po?
When you say programs, you mean how do we reward them or how do we develop them?
Both, sir, in reward and recognition. And I think more of like, how do we support since they are given this like automatic add-on responsibility kasi heightened yung emergency and risk. And since sila yung frontliner and they're expected to be there and to be your eyes. So how do we support and provide them the necessary, skills and expertise then to be able to deliver?
To answer that question, siguro I'd like to share one best practice I've seen in one company. This is not my company, but another company that I looked at before. Kasi when we put together our emergency preparedness plan, we benchmark. We benchmark, syempre. So in one of the companies that we have benchmarked with, meron silang mga napaka-humane approaches pagdating sa mga ganito. So more often ang ating mga ating mga janitors and guards are actually agency employees, right? Karamihan dyan. Although we have company guards and company janitors, but karamihan agency employees yan. This particular company, ang ginawa niya, kasi alam niya na yung guard, well, it's required kasi he will have to guard the premises, right? So, in this particular company, ang ginawa nila ay, short of saying that there is an employer-employee relationship, ang ginawa nila ay, they have actually provided a lot of assistance not only to the guard, but also to the family of the guard. Taking away yung usual, may protective equipment and all that stuff. Tanggalin na natin yon, given yon. Bigay na yon, wala tayong magagawa doon. Must yon. So what they did for these particular janitors and guards is that they put together an assistance program. Don't get me wrong, hindi ito loan. Assistance program ito. It's actually being given to the guards and to the janitors on a staggered basis. No, hindi lang siya cash. Although cash is gold at this point, no, lalo na pa with pandemic, cash is gold. So what the company did was, they have provided them monthly ano nga ba ito? Sorry. Monthly grocery allowances. Okay.
Wow.
These monthly grocery allowances are groceries, not money, are groceries that the wife or the family member can avail of in certain supermarkets. So they can buy rice, they can buy food and all that stuff. They have also provided them with what they called hazard pay. Okay, kasi hazardous naman talaga. So there was a time, if you remember, during the early days, nag-implement tayo ng hazard pay. And then after a while, nung medyo lumuwag ng konti, tinanggal na ang hazard pay. However, in this particular company, for the guards and janitors, tuloy-tuloy siya. Also, they have opened up an HMO program. Siyempre, mas maliit ng konti dun sa employee kasi baka naman sabihin, may employer-employee relationship. Plus, the purpose of the HMO is just in case the guard or the janitor gets hospitalized because of the COVID, they have something to use for themselves, right? So they have provided them HMO, they have provided them with the grocery. They have provided them with risk allowance, and ano pa ba? And there were also transport provided. So ang ginagawa nila, merong pool of transpo, yung mga guards kapag uuwi, susunduin sa isang area tas iahatid tapos i-disinfect and then ganun pa rin hatid sundo sa there are certain pick up and drop off areas and disinfection procedures that happens bago sila umuwi sa bahay nila. Ayun. So there are some best
Those are
practices
very
I've
nice
seen.
programs. Yeah.
But don't get me
Very
wrong ha,
nice
syempre may
programs.
cost yan. May cost implication yan particularly sa company, but if the company is struggling, major challenge, but if the company is really concerned about protecting their interests, no, kasi property and also protecting their people, then these are magkano lang naman yan, hindi naman ganun kalaki yan. Eventually, when COVID bowls over, then you have very loyal people under your wing.
Agree. So if we take care of them, then they take care of our business. All right.
Exactly.
So I think we have more to hear from Sir Jun po on the next presentation.
Well, these are really more some impact of COVID to our lives, no? A lot of things have changed. Teka, ano nangyari sa breakout rooms ko? Teka, let me see if ayan, okay. So, allow me to create breakout rooms, and in the breakout room, what I'd like you guys to do is to discuss amongst yourselves and ask and share this and answer these things. No, if you can't think of a lot, just try and answer at least one. What are those two things that you can no longer do during COVID? What are those two things that you used to be able to do before COVID? What are those two things that you will do after COVID? And what are those two things that you want to do after COVID? Okay. I am asking you guys to do this because after our conversation here, we'll talk about mitigating activities and moving on. Ayan. So let me fix the breakout room. Give me a sec. Ayan. Let me just fix it for you. Ayan. So we're 47. I'm creating 5 breakout rooms. Okay. So let me start this first. Give me a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Okay. Yan. Grabe, ang dami nating HR practitioners na nasa learning session natin. Congratulations, ha, Calabarzon. Congrats. Okay. Okay, I think I have everyone slotted in each room. Let's spend 10 minutes for this exercise. Would that be okay, my dear hosts?
Yes, sir.
All right. So what I'd like you guys to ano ba yan? Nabubulol ako. I'll grab my coffee soon. What I'd like you guys to do is in the breakout rooms, while you're sharing some of these things, what I'd like you to do is to focus on the feeling, on the emotion, how it felt like when you're talking about, I used to be able to visit my mom almost every day, and she's 83 years old, and I do miss her. I know she's at risk. So if I go there, I don't know if I'm carrying a virus. I don't know. So it's really, frustrating for me. It makes me really sad. I can't see my mom. We just see each other through Zoom, which I'd like you to focus on the feeling, right? I'd like you to focus on that. And later on, when we come back, if you are willing, please share it to the class. All right?
All right, sir. So
Okay,
excited na kami sa breakout room activity
All right.
natin.
Sending you now to the breakout room, guys. Go.
Good afternoon mga ka-breakout room. Pwede po ba nating i-unmute ang ating mga sarili? Ma'am Seni, Ma'am Rosel, Ma'am Rodora, Ma'am Raxpi, Maylene, Rhea, yan. Pa-unmute na lang po. Hello po sa ibang participant, pa-unmute na lang po. Ma'am Rodora, di ba ang unang tanong is two things that you used
Hello, yes, ma'am.
you used to be able to do before COVID-19. Ano po ba yung mga dalawang bagay na ginagawa natin bago magkaroon ng COVID?
Bago magkaroon ng COVID, actually, yun nga, I used to work, go to work every day. And of course, go on shopping.
O yun nga, nakakamiss, di po ba shopping? Lalo kasama yung pamilya.
Yes, yes.
Kaya totoo naman po yan. How about po kaya yung iba nating kasama dito? Ako ang talagang na-miss ko, ma'am, as yung bonding namin mag-ina. At saka ito po, yung face-to-face learning event ng Philippine HR Group. Nami-miss ko na po yun. Yun yung dalawang na-miss ko.
Okay. Mm-mm.
How about naman, ma'am, yung after COVID?
After, or what do you mean? After ECQ?
Or ngayon po na habang COVID? Kasi parang 4 po yata yung question eh. Before
Parang, oo nga, hindi
COVID,
ko na
before
before
COVID,
yun, no?
while in COVID, and
Mm-mm-mm.
after COVID, yung isa nakalimutan ko.
Teka. Yun na, yung during COVID, wala, nasa loob lang ako ng bahay. During ECQ, as in, hindi ako lumalabas. Dahil takot talaga ako.
Pero ano
Actually, lalo na yung first time na nag-ECQ, talagang
bawal
sumilip
lumabas.
sa bintana. Hindi ako umaano talaga na takot ako.
Opo.
Yun.
Ano po yung nagawa nyo noong panahon na yun?
Wala,
Dalawang bagay.
I just keep on watching TV, updating myself, listening to the news, yung mga updates lang ng about COVID, yung sa pandemic, yan. Yan lang ang ginawa ko. Kaya minsan pagka naririnig ko yung tunog ng GMA7, yung yung introduction nila, noon parang ninenervous na ako, pero ngayon medyo nare-recover na ako na ganon.
Actually, ma'am, nung panahon ng ECQ, working po ako. I am working in a hospital institution. Pumapasok pa rin po ako noon. Ang pinakadalawang bagay na ginagawa ko nung panahon ng COVID ay maligo ng alcohol at magpaaraw ng damit. Yan po kasi ang sundo ko po ay ambulansya. Ang hatid sundo po, tapos syempre po hospital po kasi, kaya talagang yung first time po na frustration ko is yung nakikita kong nagagalit yung anak ko sa akin. Kasi pagod na pagod ka na sa work, tapos parang hindi mo na kayang maligo. Pagkagalit siya. Yun yung frustration ko.
Kailangan talagang maligo, no?
No po.
Yun.
After COVID, siguro after COVID na ng ECQ siguro, sabi nila ni Sir, ma'am. Actually, bago po matapos ang COVID, nag-resign ako sa hospital and I choose to work in a manufacturing firm na hindi ganun ka-risky kagaya ng sa hospital.
Yes, kasi sa ospital, dahil basta hospital ka the more na in action ka, the more you are needed in the hospital, especially during in times of COVID, no, in pandemic.
Yes, ma'am.
Kaya talagang
sa office,
required talaga kahit office ka frontliners ka rin.
Yes, ma'am. After COVID, ma'am, yun nga, nag-manufacturing ako. 2 things I do is, dalawa po, work from home and office pa rin. Yun po yung dalawang ginawa ko. How about you, Ma'am Rodora?
Yes. After ko ECQ, ayun, pumasok na rin ako. Pumapasok na ako. Dati work from home yun eh, parang ganon. And then, ayun, nagre-report na ako, mag-report araw-araw, pero hindi naman ganun kahigpit na kung hindi ka makapasok, tawag ka lang. Kasi talagang 30% lang ang workforce noon. Parang ganun eh.
Yes,
Ilang
ma'am.
certain percent lang. Kaya kahit hindi ka pumasok, okay lang din naman. Anyway, kasi ako naman learning and development ako. So, hindi ganun ka masyado. Pwede akong gumawa ng mga programs
Oo.
sa yun.
Dapat pala, ma'am, sumasama ka sa amin sa HR Calabarzon. Anyway, ma'am, kung sakaling okay na lahat, wala ng COVID, ano po yung dalawang bagay na una niyong gagawin?
Syempre, yung hindi ko ginagawa ko nung before COVID, yung lumabas, syempre yan nga, kasama yung mga anak ko. Excited na nga sila na after COVID, punta tayo dito ha. Yung mga gano'n na talaga sila. Though ngayon, inaaya-aya nila ako, hindi ako sumasama. Sila malalakas ang loob. Ako hindi pa rin. Nakarating na sila ng Tagaytay, mga gano'n. Sabi ko, naku, hindi, takot pa ako. Mga gano'n. Kaya hindi pa ako makakaalis din ng gusto. Kasi siguro kung nakakaalis man ako, work-related. Yung talagang kailangan, hindi mo pwedeng hindian.
Opo.
Yun. Pero
Ma'am,
for pleasure, wala.
matanong ko lang po, saan po kayo nakatira?
Ako,
Yes,
sa
ma'am.
Manila.
Manila. Talagang ang HR Calabarzon, hindi na lang pang Cavite, Laguna, Batangas na po.
Yes.
Ako po kasi taga Cavite po ako.
Taga
Ang dalawang bagay na gusto ko pong gawin, unang-una po is magsimba. Magpasalamat na buhay pa yung buong pamilya ko. Hindi kami nagkasakit. Even though nagkaroon ako ng times na naging asymptomatic ako or may mga nakasalamuha ako na nag-positive. Kasi nga po, ganito tayong HR eh. Talagang, since I am the HR manager sa company namin, ako lahat ang naka-front. So yun po yung unang-una kong gustong gawin. Kasi sorry po, may mga maingay mga anak ko. Lagpas 1 taon na po na hindi ako nakakapagsimba. And second po, bonding with my son. Makalabas kami. How about po kaya yung mga kasama natin dito? Sila Ma'am Seni, si Ma'am Maylene, si Sir Sik, at saka si Ma'am or Sir Raxby. Parang kaming dalawa lang ni Ma'am Roda dito. Pero anyway, Ma'am Rodora, I hope I could have more time with you.
Yes.
I wish to have you in HR Calabarzon kahit po HR volunteer. Or even, malay
No
niyo po,
problem.
tayo ng mga next, itong August, learning and development po ang ating topic. By September, it's the first year HRE first year anniversary ng HRE knowledge. So marami tayong speaker. May international speaker din po tayo. Next week, ma'am, wag ka mawawala. Pag-ibig po.
Actually, this
Ating
topic
speaker.
today, I'm very much interested with the OSH because I'm a nurse by profession, ma'am.
Wow.
Yes.
Tapos po naging learning and development.
Yes. Kaya medyo okay naman din.
Opo.
I used to teach then. I'm teaching also in college. Kaya talagang okay lang din naman. Nagdaano naman siya. Di ba?
Opo.
Kaya ito
Connect
itong
lang po.
topic na to talagang ano ako dito. Gustong-gusto ko to lalo na yung ergonomics, no?
Opo.
Even yung last week na PhilHealth.
PhilHealth.
Interested din ako dun ng gusto ko talaga nung almost yung lahat naman talaga kasi syempre inaaral ko din dahil I'm not in line with the HR.
Yes,
Kaya
ma'am.
I keep on attending mga HR seminars.
Yes, ma'am.
Yung naka-attend akong PCHR ba yon? Yung Philippine Chambers of
Philippine HR. Opo.
Yung ganon.
Opo.
Naka-attend ako nun, matindi ako nun.
Nakakatuwa naman po na nakakasama namin kayo. Actually, ako po, by profession lang ako HR, pero hindi po ako graduate ng HR kagaya niyo. Anyway, ma'am, it's 12, 10, 9, 8 seconds. We will be leaving the breakout room.
Yes,
See
10
you in
minutes
the
lang
middle.
daw di ba?
Opo.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
Ma'am Rodora.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Hello. Bumalik tayo. Ang bilis ng 10 minutes, no?
Oo, kulang, Miss Neddy.
Pinipili mo
So
lang.
sa team namin, may mag-volunteer mag-share mamaya.
Yan.
Nabitin ba kayo?
Medyo sir,
Nabitin kami, Sir June.
yung sa team ko naman, medyo mahiyain sila. Pero I'm happy to know Ma'am Rodora. Yeah. Actually, yung mga iba is medyo talagang mahiyain sila, sir. Hindi sila nagsalita. O, diba?
Naku, bawal sa HR ang mahihiyain.
Yun nga po ang alam ko eh. Basta HR ka, hindi pwedeng mahiyain kasi ang HR ay lawyer, doctor, nurse,
All around,
officer,
Dani.
Cook.
nanny, ano pa ba? Cook, yan, tama si Sir Janet. May cook din minsan ng nurse. Ano pa ba ang nurse, Ma'am Janet? Ay, ano pa ba ang HR?
Parang tayo na yata yung jack of all trades.
Yes.
Buti na lang we have a master then. Not a master of none. Sir June, Adrian will share later.
Ayan. Teka, I think we have everyone back. Is everyone back?
Yes, sir.
Pero
think
37 na lang sila. Baka hindi na
37
bumalik
pa
yung
nga.
iba.
Baka hindi sila naka-leave.
baka ang
Automatic siya magko-close eh.
baka ang napindot ni
Yeah, there are a lot more po yata doon.
Hindi pa naka-close na yung rooms eh. Yung iba na disconnect. Ayun, na-admit ko sila. Ayan, na-disconnect yung iba. Wala na, sarado na yung room natin. Mukhang na-disconnect yung iba after, baka nag-leave sila ng room, nag-leave ng meeting.
Opo, baka ganun yung nangyari.
Oo, kaya ayan, nag-join yung iba na ayun, na-disconnect.
You can join again po.
Alright.
Alright, next, sino ang gusto? Who's the brave soul?
Mauna na ako, sir. Ako na.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay lang ba kay Ma'am Rodora na mauna na ako? Okay, things we do actually, kagaya nga ng sinasabi ni Ma'am Rodora, kaya na almost the same kami. Yung nagagawa namin is syempre banding. And syempre yung pumasok sa office ng araw-araw. Same po kami doon. Two things that can no longer do during COVID, yung lumabas po ng bahay. Si Ma'am Roda nga daw po ang sabi niya, even bintana hindi niya binubuksan. Sobrang ingat ni Ma'am. Kasi samantalang kasi ako naman, Sir June, working ako during COVID because I'm working as an HR supervisor in a hospital here in Cavite. Kaya pumapasok ako. Ang two things na ginagawa ko ay maligo ng pagod at magpaaraw ng damit. Yun po yung ginagawa ko.
Aray ko.
Yes, kaya po pasmado na yata ako ngayon. Two things that you want to do during COVID-19, yung mayakap at makabanding ang mga pamilya. Actually, pareho kami doon ni Ma'am.
Oo nga, medyo malungkot yan.
While naman yung sa 4, sorry, last na.
Oo.
Same kami ni Ma'am sa isang things. Pumasyal kasama ang pamilya.
Aray, masaya yan.
Opo. Actually, halos lahat naman, sir, ng sagot namin is almost the same. Kasi nga, parang even though Ma'am Rodora is a nurse, pero she is by profession, pero nasa learning and development siya ng HR department. Diba ang saya?
Oo.
Pinaplug ko na si Ma'am Rodora. Yan sa amin, sir, sa group namin.
Ayan. Ano yung feeling? Parang ano ba? Nakakalungkot ba? Nakaka-frustrate ba? Ano ba?
Frustrating, sir. Frustrating na nalulungkot. Pero yung after the COVID gone, excitement.
Oo.
Excitement.
Oh.
Lahat
Parang
naman
buhos,
yata,
no? Parang
Oh.
biglang buhos. Enjoy. Parang ganon.
Sana nga po.
Meron ba sa group natin na, I mean, this is a sad question. Meron ba sa group natin today na nagkaroon ng casualty sa COVID? I mean, may kamag-anak na or kapamilya. Meron ba?
Yes po, mine.
Meron
Father, parents, lolo, lola?
Si Cassie yata, Cassie James Ponce, meron daw po.
Ako, nalulungkot ako kasi almost every day, not lately, pero during the early days, almost every day may dadaan sa aking Facebook, nakakilala, and then later on getting closer to home, eventually a relative already. Mga ganun ba? It's really I don't know if saddening is the right word, but it's it affects you. Okay, next brave soul.
Adrian from my team.
Go ahead,
Hello.
don't be shy.
Good afternoon po. If I remember correctly, this is a discussion ng team namin, this is a breakout session. What's, what we miss doing during the pandemic is to travel. Travel
Mm,
business and for early leisure. And yung my participation was that what's the activities that we really we were doing before the pandemic. It's more of like the team building activities and face-to-face interaction with the team, especially if there's really pressing concern that you need a consensus as soon as possible. It's really working wonders na kausap mo, kaharap mo yung taong you're having brainstorming with, and you're going to have really solid decision afterwards. While it can be done using Zoom, the effectiveness is less eh. Iba pa rin talaga yung face to face.
Oo, iba pa rin talaga yung, alam mo yung touch ba?
Including that
Talag,
handshake, simple handshake. Right now we're like very afraid. Hanggang fist bump na lang talaga.
fist bump, elbow bump, hip bump.
Oh, kaway na lang.
Thank you for sharing. How did it feel like? I mean, what's the feeling? I mean, frustrating, sad, disappointing.
It's more of a okay na to. Parang you're settling for something that's mediocre.
Mm,
Even though
parang,
you're really wanting that same effectiveness of the previous activities.
oo,
Pero wala tayong magagawa. We have to compromise.
correct. Okay, nawala yata or akong nawala. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We can hear you po.
Baka si ano ang nawala. Well, thank you so much for sharing, my dear friends. If you encounter that situation, I'm sure your employees also encountered very similar situation or feeling. It's very important for us as HR professionals to be able to may not be 100% solve their problem, but in one way or another assist them. Okay, so let me share with you now some of those major human behaviors that has changed because of the impact of the pandemic to us. All right. Sabi nga natin, life has become less predictable. True or false?
True.
Ate, oy, tara, Batangas tayo. O tara, punta tayo sa ganito. Ngayon, hindi na pwede yun. O, meron ka na bang swab? Pag wala kang swab, di ka pa dadaanin sa checkpoint. Life has become less predictable. We were not sure as to what's gonna happen. It's kind of scary sometimes. No, if you really think about it, it's a bit scary because you don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, yeah, we have the vaccines here and there. We have seen people being vaccinated, and we're saying that it will help reduce the impact or at least prevent you from being infected or your family member. But we really don't know what's going to happen. So it becomes less predictable. Parang nawala yung control natin sa mga bagay that we were able to do before. Nawala yon. So it has an impact on our mental and emotional being, no? And it became a virtual century. When we say virtual century, sabi nyo nga, yung dating nahalikan ko yung nanay ko, ngayon sa screen na lang ng laptop ko or sa cellphone. 'Di ba? The people I used to socialize with, nagiinuman na lang kami virtually sa Zoom. So our social being was totally changed by COVID. No? Human beings are really social animals. We were born or we built that way. We're social animals. We work with other people. We have a lot of friends. We have our family to think about. We usually see them or work with them on a regular basis. But now it's either Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, and other virtual approaches. Now everything has become a health business. I mean, when you go to the supermarket, instead of enjoying yourself doing your groceries, meron kang alcohol sa kanang kamay mo, and every time hahawa ka ng isang delata, i-sprayan mo. Tama, mali.
That's true.
'Di ba? Kakain ka sa Jollibee, bago mo kainin yung Jollibee mo na naka-box, i-sprayan mo muna yung box. True or false? Wag naman yung chicken. Yung box na lang. So every business now has become a health business. There is a high tendency for us to be more kukuning. Sabi nga natin kanina, natatakot tayong lumabas. No? Hindi na tayo nagbubukas ng bintana. Sino nga ba yun yung hindi na nagbubukas ng bintana?
Si
Ma'am Rodora.
Ma'am Rodora.
Si Ma'am Rodora. Ayan, hindi na siya nagbubukas ng bintana. You know, I have a friend. Medyo senior yung parents niya. So nasa bahay lang sila. Wala naman silang yaya. Wala ring namamalengke para sa kanila. So nag-enroll sila doon sa mga virtual, yung mga delivery ng groceries, yung mga ganon. Tapos yung naghahatid ng Grab, etc., etc. You know, na-infect sila. Nag-COVID positive sila. So nung tinanong ako ng kaibigan ko, Jun, ano kaya ang nangyari? Sabi ko, to be honest with you, I don't know. But tanungin mo yung parents mo kung paano sila kumukuha ng mga resources like food and all. Kinuwento nga, yun nga daw, meron sila nung delivery ng groceries, meron yung mga Grab, etc., etc. Sabi ko, are they disinfecting? They were disinfecting naman daw. Kaya lang, sabi ko, I get that, but were they disinfecting enough? Then my friend can't answer anymore. So sabi ko, if there's no other source, nasa bahay lang sila, saan pa? Kung di dun sa mga deliveries mo, yun yung probable. So because of that fear, there's a high tendency for us to be more kukuning. This number 5 is a little bit political in a way kasi syempre, we are now watching our government officials as to how they will address the pandemic in front of us. And it will make a lot of difference pagdating sa election time. Lalo na darating yan. And of course, we have to really think about how were we supported or how is the pandemic being addressed by our authority. Unlike before na more often kung ano yung plataforma, now it's not just the plataforma, it's looking at the current situation and how are we being supported by our authority. So these are some of those behaviors that has changed drastically. Let's talk about coping. If I ask you guys the question, you'll most likely say, yeah, we are somehow coping. Are you coping now? Are you able to cope now? It's been more than a year. It's a year and 6 months almost, or parang year and 5, parang ganon. How are you guys doing? Are you able to cope na? I mean, are you back into the new normal already, or is there still that level of discomfort with the things that we are doing or encountering today? Meron pa ba yan? Or nakaka-experience pa rin ba kayo ng mga anxiety from time to time? Or you have gotten used to the GCQ, the ECQ, and the MECQ, and the other Qs that is being implemented?
Ako personally, sir, meron pa rin ako mga anxiety kasi being at HR, lalo na kapag meron kang employees na hindi nakapasok kasi nilalagnat.
Aray ko.
Tapos, hindi, ayaw magpa-vaccine, yung mga ganun.
Aray ko.
Laging ikakatwiran, sabi sa vaccine, ano daw yan hindi naman daw mga ganun po. Yun lang, as of the moment, yun po yung anxiety na nararamdaman ko. Lalo na nitong past few days na nag-contact tracing kami, tapos payroll, tapos napapagalitan ka ng accounting tsaka ng may-ari kasi nga nalilate ka sa payroll. Mga ganong tipo na ano ba talaga ang mas priority namin, yung payroll o yung safety nung halos 200 employees na nandun sa company. Yun yung anxiety.
There you go. So, if you guys are encountering something like that, allow me to share with you some tips. Okay. Let me... Ala, itchy throat na ako. I'll drink water lang
COVID.
ako. 1 sec. Wag naman. Diyos ko tayo. Although marami na akong vaccine. Kasi frontliner, matik yan.
Actually, may
Eh?
tanong din tayo, sir, tungkol sa vaccine. Ano po ba ang magagawa natin kung may employee tayong hindi gustong magpabaksin? Ano nga ba, sir? Baka may gusto kayong ma-share sa amin. Kasi kahit ako, may concern ako na ayaw magpabakuna.
You know, there is really no law forcing the employee or the person to go and have a vaccine, right? So, and the company really cannot compel the employee to have his vaccine, but the employer cannot be compelled. Ika nga, at some point, ika nga if the employer is really asking the employee to go for a vaccine and ayaw niya, he cannot compel. But if the employer requires the employees to go on a vaccine, the employer will have to spend for it. Gastos na employer yon, siya magbabayad ng vaccine and all. If the employee still refuses to, I don't think there's a law that can force him to. However, babalik tayo dun sa question natin kanina. Yung bang kanyang pumapasok na ba siya sa work without the vaccine? And babalik tayo dun sa ating mga procedures na ginagawa sa ating workplace. So what I'm saying is, there is really no law that will force him to go take the vaccine. And the employer cannot discriminate as well. Although, syempre, we are seeing risk from an HR standpoint. Somebody na hindi vaccinated, although we cannot say din naman, no, 100%. Baka pag pumasok sa workplace ay may dala-dala pa rin. But we can't say that 100% kasi unless meron tayong mga tests that are conducted. So to answer your question, I don't think it's even an answer, no. To answer your question, we cannot force the employee na magpa-vaccine. If we want our employees na mag-vaccine and the company is forcing it, then the company will have to spend for the vaccine. Yun ang reality natin today.
I think that's the common issue ng mga HR practitioners and business owners that are regularly joining us in every Saturday session, Sir June. Kasi parang there are like wrong connotations or notions about the possible negative impact ng vaccine.
Kasi at this point, wala pa namang, I mean, you can't really tell 100% eh. Like although I've seen a lot of my friends, matagal na rin, siguro almost 3 months na silang na vaccinate. So far, wala naman din silang wala naman silang well, noong umpisa meron, siyempre. That's the impact of the vaccine. Para kang binakunahan yan eh. Well, actually, the vaccine is bakuna in a way. So nung sinaksakan sila, meron silang konting naramdaman. They felt, meron silang naramdaman for several days. Then after that, wala na. The thing is, sabi doon sa video natin kanina, vaccine kasi the study of vaccine takes time. Yung sa Ebola nga, 5 years bago na perfect yung vaccine eh. So, hindi mo maiiwasan na may fear talaga. Kasi meron namang mga nababalita, di ba? Like for example, we've heard of a certain vaccine na nagkukos ng bleeding, di ba? Severe bleeding.
Dingvax siya, sir. Hanggang ngayon, may namamatay pa rin.
So, baka tayo ma-quote, wag kang mag-mention ng name.
Oo nga pala. Yeah, sorry.
Pagalitan tayo. Ayan. So,
ma-quote and quote tayo.
Oo, wag. But I guess in social media, it's all over the place, di ba? Yeah. But, you know, what I'm saying is, you cannot avoid, a person cannot avoid thinking twice. Diba? I mean, siyempre, katawan mo yan. If you're taking a risk, edi siyempre, kinakabahan ka talaga. You cannot avoid it, siyempre. May kakabahan at may kakabahan. Ika nga.
I think if I may share, Sir June, what I did that actually worked in our organization is I prepared a vaccination in the workplace policy wherein we've had to a part of that policy would be an educational campaign. So on a daily basis, we send out campaigns to employees like, did you know na pag vaccinated ka, 7 days ka na lang maka-quarantine? So less ang absences mo. It's more of making them appreciate
education.
the benefit of getting vaccinated. Kasi Si Dole in the vaccination workplace policy naman that has been issued by Dole, sabi niya doon, employee can refuse. Employee can refuse. And employer cannot terminate that employee for not, saying yes to vaccine. So that's something that would really be like,
Today.
parang tayo yung magti-trigger kasi as HR practitioner eh. How do you encourage your people to get this? So it's still a matter of our responsibility as HR to educate them.
Correct. Baka naman kinakabahan lang dahil hindi sila sure. You know,
Okay.
maybe education will help. Yan. All right. So let's move forward. If you are having these types of feeling, no, normally when we talk to someone, we ask them the question, so how are you feeling? Kumusta ka na? Diba? Very often, ang sasagitin nila, I'm okay, or okay lang, ayos lang. But as HR professional, it's very important for us to help our employees get through what they are going through, ika nga. So pag sinabi nila, I'm okay, ganito lang, ganyan, ganyan, you might want to dig a little bit further by asking them, I mean, how are you really feeling? Like the way I asked you kanina, how are you? How was it? Na, syempre, namatay yung ganito ko. Ngayon pa lang, nag-grieve pa rin ako. Medyo ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. Nalulungkot pa rin ako and all that. So, if you are having this kind of feelings, let me share with you some tips, okay, on how to not really overcome them 100%, but things that you can do, okay, if you're going through this. If you are afraid or you have this fear, no, I remember some of my friends were saying, define fear. Fear is emotion appearing to be real, FEAR. But in the case of pandemic, like in our case today, fear, I guess fear is real because we have seen people, like I said kanina, I asked you guys if you have had experience, a relative or somebody close to you who passed away because of the COVID-19. So you cannot help but be afraid sometimes. Okay? So if you are feeling that way, here are some tips for you to think about. Now is not the time to be a soloist. Kasi hindi na nga tayo nagkikita face to face. Now is not the time to be in your house talking to no one, especially if you're having all of these emotions. You need to reach out and maintain that social connection with friends, with family, even through social media. Kahit hindi yan face to face, it helps to talk to somebody, a familiar face, a familiar voice, you know, it helps to talk. You may not be able to share your all of what you're feeling right now with that person, but you know, at the very least, have that conversation, be able to talk about some of the feelings that you're feeling right now, and keep that connection even if nasa social media connection lang siya. My dear friends, this thing will bowl over, you know, soon. I'm praying it does. And when it does, you want that social connection to be there, ika nga. All right. Nothing would hurt if you create a personal health or safety plan. That's the reason why meron tayong mga personal protocols. No? Nothing would hurt, ika nga. Hindi naman makakasama na gumawa ka ng personal health plan mo. Hindi ko sinasabing kumuha ka ng, if you don't have an HMO, and well, it is best that you get one if you can afford one or it is available to you. But if it's not, you can put together a simple health plan for yourself, like how many hours ka lang maglalabas, ano yung protection na kailangan mo, pag nag-grocery ka, ganito kalayo ang distance mo between people, or if you're feeling something, here's a doctor that you can easily call, you know, your health plan just in case. Reach out for support. It is important that you guys have a support network. The reason why one of the reasons why meron tayong mga social groups or mga chat groups, no, nowadays is hindi lang pangkwentuhan. I'm actually a member of several, I think 3 or 4 COVID chat groups. So what they do there is they reach out to the people in the group. They ask questions, they ask for advice here and there, especially from those who have gone through it. And lo and behold, you get a lot of golden nuggets in there. No, they're able to give you, kasi nadaanan nila, na-experience nila, they're able to give you some tips here and there, some things that you can do or things to avoid. And if talagang hindi maiiwasan and you're really having this feeling, you might want to talk to somebody professional. Marami nang available ngayon. Teleconsult can actually provide you um, professionals like psychiatrists who can help counsel you in this situation. If you're feeling grief naman because a family member or somebody very close to you was impacted and passed away, um, the fact of the matter is it is quite challenging. No? Medyo malungkot talaga yan, and talaga namang it will really impact us. But we have to understand that this is a reality of the current situation, and so much as we don't like it, it exists today. And sabi, syempre, we're all hopeful na hindi dapat mangyayari sa atin, but when it does, it's very important for you to keep your wits about you, and don't lose hope. Ika nga. If you are in this situation and you're grieving, try to come up with a routine. Hindi ba kayo nagtataka bakit biglang nag-proliferate yung mga plantitos and plantitas? Prior COVID, konti lang yan eh. But nowadays, if you notice, a lot of people are into plantitos and plantitas, and it's actually a routine that helps them get the load off their heads. No, you can come up with your own routine as well to get that feeling slowly off. Ika nga. Okay. It's also very important for you to find ways to honor your loved ones. I remember my father saying that, kasi my father was in the service before, and when he passed away, one of the things that he asked me to do before he passed away, nasa deathbed pa siya, sabi niya is, anak, when I go, what I'd like you to do is to come and visit, go and visit your titos and titas in Bulacan. These are the people that I grew up with and I'm very close to. I'd like you to visit them regularly and, get to know them more and all that. So sabi ko, okay, sure, sure, sure. I wasn't really giving much attention to it. But when he did pass, I went to to his friends or titos and titas in Bulacan, and lo and behold, they have a lot of great things to say about my dad, a lot of experiences that they shared together. And, it helped me get over that because, these are the things that my dad used to do. And, it helped me recover. Okay. If you're feeling that way, these are just some tips. There are a lot more actually. If you're feeling sad, um, you know, if HR folks are very ika nga, very familiar with emotional intelligence, no, and if we're feeling an emotion, there is actually a lot of lesson in there. When you're feeling a certain emotion, tune into that emotion. Why am I feeling this way? What is going on? Learn from it. Try to understand what is going on. Why are you feeling this way? Why is it so? Why is it so? And all that. So get the lesson from there, and you'll realize that there are a lot of lessons. Okay, I'm feeling sad because of one, two, three, four, five. Okay, why am I feeling sad about this one and all that? Okay. It's also important that when you're feeling sad, you give priority to yourself. Take care of yourself. Minsan, pag malungkot tayo, we have the tendency to neglect a lot of things about ourselves, like our mental health, the way we look after ourselves. I remember my mom when my dad passed away. One of the things that, kasi she was really really sad, and my sisters were like telling nanay, she used to have a routine kasi eh. And this routine she loves doing, which is planting sa backyard. And she stopped doing that when my dad passed away. So what my sister did was they started getting her back into that particular exercise. And slowly, slowly now she actually have a small farm. Whenever I go home, pagbalik ko, meron akong bayong na punong-puno ng gulay. So that's how she took care of herself. She was able to do that. Worrying about something that may or may not happen will significantly affect your emotional state. Tune into that. If you're worrying about something, tune into that worry. Take 5. Okay, why am I worrying about this? Try and figure out why. Baka naman worry lang talaga yan. Baka naman hindi totoo yan. I mean, sometimes we worry about a lot of things that are not even true or may not even happen. We create a lot of picture in our head because of that fear. No, there is COVID out there. A lot of people are dying. I might die too. You don't know that. It may or may not happen. That's the reason why you take precautions, right? You're worrying too much, and it does affect your emotional state. Okay, tune into that. Learn from that. What is going on? Why am I so worried? Ako, I get a piece of paper, write it down. 1, 2, 3, 5. I'm worried about this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. Ba't ba ako worried sa 1? Kasi ganito. So, I try to tune into that feeling. Okay. And if I'm worried about something, I reach out to someone or some of my network friends. Hey guys, I'm thinking of this. Can you help me process this a little bit? Marami rin akong tropa kasi, maraming barkada. And pagka meron akong something's bothering me, I send them a note. Pre, meron ka bang na-experience na ganito dati? Sabi niya, wala pa. Ganitong nararamdaman ko ganyan, ganyan. What do you think? So he shares with me his opinion. And I ask another person, shares with me his opinion as well. And I try to, learn from those as well. Okay? Take a break. I always tell my friends that if you are worrying about something, take a break. Medyo mag-ano ka muna, bumitaw ka muna sa social media. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of news in social media that may or may not be true unless you validate it or you verify it. So sabi ko, pare magpatay ka muna ng social media mo, manahimik ka, magpahinga ka, do what you love to do, patayin mo muna yan. And sometimes they do it and they say, that whole day, that whole 12 hours na naka-shutdown ng everything ko, I was able to think about things. So if you're worrying about something, these are some tips. Tune in on it. Why am I worried? What is causing this? Is it even a reality, or maybe it's just something I'm worried about? It's not helping me. So you have to figure it out and ask help from people. Ask from your support groups. Lastly, anger. Why are you so angry? I am angry because this this pandemic has taken away my loved one. Okay, I get that. Tune into that feeling. I am angry because of this, this, and that. Kasi I cannot go out to MOA and be with my friends. Kasi I cannot go out and have my swimming somewhere. All right, sure, I get that. Relax. Or let's tune into that feeling. You know for a fact that there are restrictions because it's for your own protection. You want to go to the beach, but there could be a lot of people in the beach that you don't know. They might even have one. You don't know. Yeah. Oh, I should not. So take a break. Okay, take a break. Relax ng konti. Inhale, exhale, and let that anger subside a little bit. Then tune into that feeling. Why am I feeling angry? Baka wala namang dahilan. I get it. We are mad. We are angry because we lost somebody, a loved one, from COVID, because of COVID. And there's really nothing much we can do about it, right? I mean, we cannot get them, we cannot bring them back to life, even if we get mad the whole time. So we have to take care of ourselves too, right? We grieve, sure. Eventually, we get over the grieving. Okay. So if you're feeling angry, relax, take a calming breath, and then tune into that feeling. If you need help, you need to talk to a professional as well. Okay. Being lonely, being alone is not the time to be alone. Okay. Maintain your social connections. It's very important to have that conversation from time to time with friends or people that you trust and you're comfortable with. Being alone in your house is not going to help you. You need to reach out to somebody. Sabi nga natin kanina, doon sa nag-share sa atin, naiinis ako kasi hindi ko na siya nakakausap madalas ng face-to-face. But it is a reality today. Still, have that conversation. Usap pa rin kayo. Go. Kahit sa telepono, pwede ka naman tumawag. Kahit mag-video call kayo, pwede pa rin naman. It's not optimal, but that's where we are today, right? But still have that conversation. Maintain that connection. You have to maintain that connection. Okay, your support mechanism, ika nga. All right. Stress is a product of all the other things that we talked about. Okay, again, same advice. Take a break. You might be stressing out on something that you should not be stressing about. Find ways to detoxify yourself. Ako, alam ko bawal masyado maglalakad ngayon, but my way of detoxifying myself is riding a bike. Alam ko na bawal sa mga crowded, so what I do is that I ride my bike here sa subdivision during the afternoon, mga 3 or 4 in the afternoon, nagbabike lang ako dyan. Walang masyadong tao sa kalsada and all that, so I do that. I chat with friends. I conduct training virtually sometimes. I and all that. That's my way of detoxifying myself. Okay, and then seek support from friends and family and trusted people or organizations. Seek help from other HR. You'll be surprised. In the Philippine HR group, when somebody asks a question, although may mga reply din na hindi maganda minsan, but you will find a lot of nuggets in some of the responses there. And if you really feel like you want to talk to someone, reach out to some of those HR practitioners and you'll be surprised. They will give you great advice or at least listen to you. That's one of the traits of an HR person. We are great listeners, right? And find your happy place. Find your happy place. Ako ang happy place ko, kitchen. I love to cook. So that's my happy place. If I'm really stressed out and I'm feeling all of this, I go to the kitchen and cook something. But my wife complains a lot. Kasi pag na-stress ako, magluluto, sabihin niya, ang dami na naman pagkain, lalamig na naman yan. Ano ba yan? That's my way of detoxifying myself. So magagalit siya kasi ang daming putahe, lalamig. Meron kaming teriyaki. Pag sinabi namin teriyaki, ibig sabihin, tirayan kahapon. So sabi niya, stress ka, no? Oo. Ang daming tira eh. May teriyaki naman. So teriyaki na lang yung bukas. Find your happy place. I'm sure you have your own happy place. May not necessarily be a place. It can be a place it can be a something that you do. It doesn't have to be a place. It can be if you're comfortable playing COD, then that's your happy place. ML, then that's your happy place. Wag mo lang gawing oras-oras the whole day. No, I mean, that's your happy place. If you want to talk to somebody that you're very comfortable with, then that's your happy place. You have to find that. Okay. I guess that's it for me, unless you have questions. I hope my tips in coping up will be able to help you when you're in that situation, or you'll be able to help someone who is in need. And they're
Thank you,
in that
Sir June.
situation.
Thank you so much po. That was so nice. Those are so very nice advice, inputs, and tips, especially in being responsible to check on other people, kasi even the strongest person now needs our help also. So we need to be very conscious of how others are feeling. Ako nga, sabi ko nga kay Miss Nedy, di ba Miss Nedy, nakarelate ako sa sinabi ni Sir June. Nag-social detox ako, Sir June, because things are overwhelming now. I think for most HR practitioners, when a lot of things are happening in the organization, and you are being given a lot of mandate to implement this and that, do this and do that, it can be overwhelming. Kahit gaano ka nakatagal siguro sa practice, minsan nakakapanghina ng loob. And I'm just so lucky I have the very strong support back office team who are really efficient and effective. Pero I think isa sa mga responsibilities, Sir June, ng HR, no, tama po kayo, yung you have to check on your people regularly because people are not always okay, especially during this pandemic. So HR practitioners, you know where to go. HR Calabarzon is just here every Saturday. You can talk to us, to all of our board of directors, to Miss Nedy herself. So if you need anything, just, get in touch with us. Sir June is there any moment. Siguro ibibigay namin mamaya yung contact details ni Sir June sa lahat ng participants. So if you need anything, you can reach out to your fellow HR practitioners. All right. I think, Sir June, naubos. Marami pa po akong question na nakasulat dito, na-capture ko. Kaya lang parang naubos na yung oras natin. I wouldn't be able to answer, to provide an opportunity for you to answer all of these questions. But we highly take note of this. And to those participants who have unanswered questions, we will try to reach out to you po through email and answer your questions po from Sir Jun's inputs. So thank you very much all for being with us. I think to formally like this will stop others. Okay. I think I would just need to
share the screen, ma'am.
Okay po. So can you see my screen, Miss Neddy, now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There you go. So, Sir June, we are really honored. Hindi ko in-expect. Nagulat ako ang tanong ko kanina, Sir June. Do you happen to be with CPLD? Kasi parang familiar, oo nga siya ngayon. Our master trainer and CPLD who have like a lot of knowledge really to share with all of us here. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And indeed, HR Calabarzon would really want to present you this certificate of appreciation to Sir, ano po yung CDR? Sorry, hindi ko natanong kanina.
It's my honorary rank, Commander.
Commander, yeah.
Tama. Tama tayo dun.
Maximo June Del Ponce Jr. for sharing his invaluable knowledge and expertise as resource speaker for the 33rd HRE Knowledge entitled OSH, Surviving, Coping, and Moving On Amidst Pandemic via Zoom and Facebook Live today. July 17, 2021, signed by our founder, Miss Neddy R. Estrella. Thank you so much, Sir June.
Thank you so
sir.
much. Thank you guys. Thank you so
Pero
much.
anyway, bago po tayo magkahiwalay-hiwalay, syempre hindi po natin pwedeng makalimutan ang ating mandatory picture taking. Ma'am, pasta po ng screen.
Camera on.
Yan. Ay, di ba nakaganon agad si Sir? Oh? Talagang si Sir June ay talagang talagang cowboy talaga to sa amin. Makisuyo po open na lang po ng ating mga camera. Hi Ma'am Jake. Hi Sir Alex. Hi Ma'am Mary Rose. Hi Ma'am Corazon. Parang nawala si Ma'am Rodora.
Kinain ng liwanag.
Okay po.
Hindi ba napapansin sa Zoom, kinakain tayo ng liwanag minsan. Nawawala.
Yung green screen.
Smile. Yan. Isa pa, ma'am. Ma'am, kumukuha ka rin or ako lang?
Sige, ma'am, ikaw na lang. Actually, kumuha din ako. Pero,
ay, ano ba yun? Iba yung lumabas.
Wait lang, ma'am. Naka-take na ako ng first slide.
Ay, sige, ma'am. Ikaw na.
All right, and let's go to the next. Okay. Sorry medyo mabagal kasi alam mo, natutunan ko lang itong mga teki-teki thing na to dito kay Miss Neddy talaga, Sir June.
Ay, naku, wag mo akong asahan. Oldie pa rin ako.
Oo, itong problema nating mga oldie practitioner na, no? All right, we got it all. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining HR Calabarzon. Miss Neddy, do you have anything else to say?
Muli po nagpapasalamat po ang HR Calabarzon sa inyo sa pagsama sa amin ngayong hapon ito. Next week po, abangan po natin. Last week, we have PhilHealth. Next week, abangan po natin ang Home Development Mutual Fund. Kasama po natin sa HRE Knowledge 34th edition. At syempre, asahan po natin ang ating August Learning and Development and ang sorpresa ng HR Calabarzon sa ating first year HRE Knowledge Anniversary. Samahan niyo po kami sa tuwing hapon every Saturday. At huwag niyo po kalimutan, Sunday, Philippine HR Group, HR Cafe. Ayun, may nagulat ako.
Sir June, there are participants po that are really very eager to, sabi nga nila baka daw pwede pong ulitin yung presentation ninyo. They had fun really and learned a lot. So where can they contact you po in case they need anything from your services?
Mute. Well, you can find me in any social media. Just type in June Del Ponce, you'll find me there. Nakakalat ako kaladkarin kasi ako. Yeah, you can find me there. You can find me at Facebook, Messenger, June Del Ponce. Just type in my name and you'll find me there. My mobile number, if you need it, it's 0917 554-4945. Do reach out. You can also look for my group, SOAR, SOAR, Special Operations Assistance and Rescue Philippines. You will find it easily. Meron din kaming webpage, www.soarems.com. So you can find me there as well. Ayan. Kaladka rin ako so you can find me in any social media.
Sir
Thank you
June.
so much, Sir June. Tinext ko po mga ka-HR dun po sa group chat natin para you can find Sir June's number and GC group. Thank you so much po.
Sir June, ang
Po.
alam ko po, meron kayong ino-offer na OSH First Aid Training.
Ah.
Can you invite our mga ka-HR? Kasi maraming nangangailangan yan ngayon dahil sa mga DOLE requirement. Baka naman po pwede nyo kaming maimbitahan at kung kaya nyo na pong sabihin sa amin kung magkano at kung paano sumali.
Oh, sure. We actually completed 2 batches already of basic life support and first aid course dito. Yung ating basic life support ay 2 days. Yung ating first aid course ay 2 days din. So normally ginagawa natin yan towards the weekend para yung ating trabaho hindi masyadong maapektuhan. Normally Friday and Saturday yan. Or may companies nagre-request sila ng Thursday, Friday. Ang ating training is ang ating mga training ay accredited by the Department of Labor and accepted ng mga ng mga auditors natin kasi tayo ay DOH certified. So tanggap nila yung mga certifications na binibigay natin. So normally, very, very affordable ang ating courses kasi nga we realize that medyo requirement yan. At the same time, medyo mahirap ang buhay ngayon. Kuripot ang mga kumpanya. Sa totoo lang. Ayan. All right. So normally, when you attend the BLS and first aid, you get 3 certificates from us. One is the certificate for basic life support. The other one is the certificate for first aid. And the other one is yung certificate for bleeding control coming from the American College of Surgeons. Mura lang naman ang training natin, basic first aid and basic life support ay 2,500 lang po per person. Very, very cheap. Very affordable.
Yan. So, everyone, kung kayo po ay member ng Philippine HR Group at HR Calabarzon Group, madali nyo pong makikita si Sir June Del Ponso. VGD June Del Ponso po. Chat nyo lang po siya at easily. Kung hindi man siya makasagot ngayon, baka after an hour or 2, sasagot po siya.
So, sorry, Neddy. Ang discussion namin ni Neddy, magbe-break na 1 oras, 2 oras, tapos discuss ulit. Sorry.
Thank you po ulit, Sir June.
Learning kasi, Sir June. Tuwa-tuwa sila po.
Busy.
Muli po, Sir June, in behalf of Board of Directors of HR Calabarzon, maraming salamat po sa very, very short notice. Pero binigyan niyo po kami ng pagkakataon na maging isa po kayo sa resource speaker ng HR Calabarzon. Maraming salamat po. At muli po sa mga ka-HR natin dyan sa Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon, maraming salamat po. Magandang gabi. Gabi na kasi madilim na po dito sa akin. Ang lakas mo kasi ng ulan dito. Umuulan po dito. Maraming salamat po muli. Ingat po tayo. Stay safe everyone. Magandang hapon po. Bye!
Bye po.
Thank you.
Bye guys. Take care.
Bye.
Be safe.
Be safe po.
Be safe po.